Hi, everybody. It's Ryan here with Pi Records. I'm here with Sean Berry of Double Crown Records, the surf guitar label. How are you doing, Sean?
Doing great, great. Thank you.
So, you want to tell us a little bit about how Double Crown got started and what your influences are as far as surf guitar?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so it started in the mid 90s, and I actually kind of started off at the time doing fanzines, just little magazines I put together using cut and paste, using the copier at work on the slide to print out the pages and put them together and distribute them for free around Bellingham, uh, up in Washington State. And basically, it started off just personal writing, some show reviews, music reviews, and it was really a little bit of everything. It wasn't just surf rock. I think at the time, once I got up to like 6 or 7 issues of the magazine, I got on a couple of major label promo lists and ended up interviewing Will Sargent of Echo and the Bunnymen
Wow.
and Mark Burgess of the Chameleons, a couple of larger British indie rock bands. And but then at the same time, we had Estrus Records in Bellingham, and I went to the record store every week just to see what was new. And I was looking through the bins and saw a few local releases, surf, garage, punk. Um, and I was also new to the town at the time, so I looked into what labels, what bands were around town, and I saw that Estrus Records had a little flyer in one of the shop windows and said, "Write for a free catalog." And so I sent a self-addressed stamped envelope, which is the way you did it back then. And in return, I got a one sheet that had I think the first 4 or 5 releases that Estrus put out. I remember there was a Game for Vultures 7-inch, a couple Monoman releases, um, and then they had a Man or Astroman, Destroy All Astromen LP out. And I was like, wow, that looks kind of cool. I remember surf and garage or surf rock from, my parents had a couple surf records. They had a compilation of like the Beach Boys, Jan and Dean, had the Trashmen on it. Um, but didn't really know much about surf, but I just really loved the cover art and I really wanted to kind of take the plunge. So I sent an order in for that Man or Astroman LP, and then I think I picked up a Mono Man and Game for Vultures and a Roof Dogs 7-inch as well. And yeah, once I got that Man or Astroman record, I was just blown away. Played it over and over again. And then at that time, I started to seek out other labels doing something similar. So I found out about Norton Records, Dionysus, Hillsdale. Gosh, there's all sorts of other labels back then, Solamente Records. Um, yeah, and then I started reviewing some of those records in my magazine. And then it kind of started becoming more of a surf and garage, rockabilly, exotica music magazine. Um, and then I changed the name and the focus to the Continental magazine. And in that first issue, I interviewed Dave Kreider of Estrus Records and the Mono Men, and a band called Eight Ball Shifter, kind of an East Coast garage rock band. Um, and so it became a surf and garage magazine at that point, and sent out a bunch of copies out to different labels and bands, and then started getting demos and cassettes and 7-inches and CDs for review. And it kind of snowballed from there. But I was receiving some really great demo cassettes. Among those was from the Penetrators. I remember getting one from the Space Cossacks as well, Insect Surfers. A lot of them came in on cassettes back then. And I thought, well, after talking to Dave Kreider and talking to him a bit about how he financed things, who he worked with to press vinyl, do the artwork, I was like, I could probably scrounge up $1,000 and put out a 7-inch. And so contacted the Penetrators, and we put together the Hit the Jet Stream 7-inch. with 4 songs, and then there was some dialogue in between the songs from the pilot of it. It was a themed 7-inch about going on a mission in an airplane, and so there's a lot of captains banter in between the songs, and but anyways, so yeah, and the 7-inch did really well, and then that financed the next release, which was a Boss Martian 7-inch, and then that financed the first CD was by the Del Vamps, and those first 3 releases, the magazine was Continental Records, and so, or excuse me, the magazine was the Continental, so I named the label Continental Records. Then at the time I found out there was a Continental Records in Canada, there was a Continental Records in the United States, and there was a Continental Club down in Texas that was also thinking of starting their own label. And I was like, I don't want to get into any sort of legal issues, so I should just change the name. And so my wife and I, we looked all over the house, looked at different books for inspiration, and I got her, she was in beauty school at the time, and I bought her haircutting book from like the 1910s. It was, the book was about 100 years old, and we were thumbing through it, and then there was a term for a person that had 2 crowns on their head, and the way you had to cut hair with that, it wasn't necessarily freakish, but it was basically, instead of having like 1 point on your head, there was kind of 2 with some people.
Yeah.
And it was referred to as a double crown. And I knew there was a Crown Records back in the 60s, and I believe there was a Triple Crown Records, but there wasn't a double crown. So I went with that name, and other than occasional issues with people confusing Double Crown with those other labels, it's been pretty smooth sailing with that name ever since.
That's awesome. Now, how many releases did you put out over the years? And what are some of the bands that are really hitting hard, like the Fathoms and stuff like that?
Well, let's see. I'm up to the catalog numbers. Basically, it started with number 1, and I'm up to 87 that I'm working on now.
Wow.
I think we've, for one reason or another, we've assigned catalog numbers to 1 or 2 releases, and those haven't happened or may happen at some point in the future. I remember I was, one of them was, there was a German surf band called the Astronauts. And basically their shtick was they wore, astronaut costumes and did a lot of cover songs of like Johnny and the Hurricanes and stuff like that. But that release never turned out. So I think we assigned a catalog number to that, and just never happened. And there might be 1 or 2 others. But so overall, I'd say probably there's been about 84 releases, somewhere in the mid 80s at least. And then the Continental Magazine, there's been just put out issue number 28, and working on number 29 right now. And then some of the bands, let's see. I mean, I'm not going to name like favorite releases or best releases I put out. I can't say the best-selling ones. The Penetrators Locked and Loaded CD, that sold really well over the years. It's out of print now. The Madeira CDs have sold pretty well, actually really well. So that's been a good one. The Surfite CDs have been really good. But overall, the philosophy of the label has always been to make enough money with each release to finance the next release. And if it goes a little bit above that, that's great. But I've been fortunate enough to basically run the label as a hobby or kind of a second side business. I've always worked a regular 40-hour-a-week job, and then worked on the label and packed orders in the evenings. So, and that's changed a little bit now with the current situation with the coronavirus. Basically, my wife and I, we've kind of switched gears with our lives. We made some plans for this year that haven't happened. And so, we're kind of laying low, sheltering in place for the most part. And I'm doing the label pretty much as my main job right now. And what's been fun about that is the magazine's only come out maybe once or twice a year. And I've been able to ramp up production on that. So it's every 2 to 3 months or so.
Well, that's
And
great.
then the same with releases as well. I've done more releases over the last 6 months than I usually do in a 6 month period.
So I was speaking to Dee Dee Ray. I'm not sure if you know her. I spoke to her yesterday, and she was talking about the surf community throughout the world. There's a big. I mean, it's a small niche, but there's a far-reaching community. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple aspects to that. The first one is I mentioned to people that I run a surf music record label, and they're like, "Oh wow, what's that? Beach Boys?" And it's like, no, it's instrumental surf rock for the most part. And my philosophy has always been it's not like I'm trying to sell 50,000 or 100,000 of a release. Basically, with each release, we make at least 300, and sometimes we start out with 500, 750, or 1,000 units. And I just kind of figure there's got to be 300 people or up to 1,000 people in the world that would be interested in what we're doing here. So, um, you know, it would be nice, I guess, maybe more so for the bands than myself to sell 5,000 or 10,000 copies of something. But yeah, that's not really the goal. It's really just hitting that community that really is into this style of music. So that's the business side of it. But the community that's been like what's kept me doing this for, gosh, it's about 25 years now. Um, it's fun working on new releases and working with new bands and all that, and that's a big part of it. But there's kind of a core group of people that I've really worked with closely over the years, both on the label and the magazine, and that includes, gosh, if I name people, I'll probably forget one or two. But back in the early days, Rip Thrilby, guitarist of the Penetrators that sadly passed a few years ago. He did a lot of the artwork for the early releases, and of course his band was the first release on the label. Worked with Shag a couple times back when he was doing album art. He did the Boss Martian 7-inch sleeve. Then Johnny Bartlett of the Phantom Surfers and Hillsdale Records, he did the cover art for most of the Christmas CDs I've put out, and several of the Continental magazines. Parents of Frankie and the Pool Boys, he's done cover art for several releases, and Ivan of the Space Cossacks and Madeira. He's been great with some of the best writing for the magazine, some of the articles he's submitted for the magazine and some of the interviews he's done. Yeah, just great writing. He's a busy guy, so he can't write for every issue, but yeah, he's done lots of great stuff for the magazine. But then beyond that,
He sounds like he's playing all the time. Ivan?
I'm sorry.
Oh, Ivan
Yeah.
sounds like he's playing all the time, like he's always busy.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, he's got. Let's see. I mean, he's got the Madeira, but then he's also got. Let's see, the Troubadours, his project with his dad, where they play Shadows covers. The Space Cossacks get together every once in a while, but yeah, he's busy with his job as well, and so. Yeah, I'm amazed when he does write, just how in depth his pieces are and how lengthy they are. Yeah, so it's always great to feature him in the magazine.
Yeah, Jen and I were blown away. Growing up, I was a very big fan of surf. My uncles played in surf bands when they were in high school. They got me into playing guitar, and when I introduced it to Jen, she was immediately into it, and she loves all your work.
Oh,
And
awesome.
I just wanted to know what you have coming up this year, and what is your goal for the next, I don't know, 1 to 2 years, coming out of the quarantine.
You know, there was a whole bunch that has come out this year so far. Only really have one CD in the pipeline. That would be there's a band in Mexico called Secret Agent that have a couple of EPs that have been released down there, but haven't received a wider release. And they sent their music for review in the magazine uh, earlier this year, and I was just kind of blown away by it and thought it'd be kind of cool just to put out a CD that compiles that material. There may be one or two bonus songs in that as well. I had an idea of doing another Christmas CD, and that probably won't happen this year just because obviously you want to get that out by October, November.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think that's going to come together this year. Otherwise, I don't have anything else immediately planned, but I'm always on the lookout for stuff. And I just started doing the reviews for issue 29 of the magazine. So, you know, there might be some demos in there that might be of interest. Yeah, and it's hard. I often encourage bands, if I don't have the time or finances to, because I get approached by bands all the time saying, hey, we'd love to work with Double Crown, can you put out our release? And if I had the finances, then I could probably put out 30 or 40 releases a year based on bands that want to do something with the label. And I have to kind of whittle that down to the 6 to 8 that I do each year. Financially, that's all I can do, but also time-wise, that's all I can do as well, especially up until recently, you know, working a full-time job and then the label on the side. So yeah, I'll see what might come out of that. You know, it's so easy for bands to release on their own, and a lot of bands, for them, just releasing something digitally works just fine for them. I've always had the philosophy that, you know, if you're in a band and you believe in your music, you should still release it in a physical format, whether that's 7-inch or CD. Can we pause for a sec?
Sure.
Is that okay? I'm gonna get some water.
While Sean is waiting, I just want to reach out and say that Double Crown has been very kind to Pi Records, and that we're very happy with all the releases they've released, and we just enjoy their dedication to the surf community and learning more about them, more about the bands. Music we just enjoy very much. We hope to hear more from them, but as far as quarantine goes, we're still all stuck at home. So, oh, hi, Sean.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if you had the ability to pause that or not. I think it might be the smoke that's kind of like,
Oh,
yeah, it's not super bad. Like the sky still has a bluish tinge to it, but yeah, definitely we're getting some of the smoke from the fires east of here.
I know the folks in California are. My friends on Facebook are. Some of them are living in like shelters. Like it was just insane. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? How it's affecting your area?
Well, we live on the coast, so we're actually, I would guess maybe about 80 or 90 miles from the closest fire. But a lot of the fires are happening in the Cascade Mountains, which are maybe about 150 miles east of here. But yeah, yesterday a really strong wind started picking up out of the east, so it's just carrying all that smoke this direction. It's really bad in Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia right now, and we're just west of Olympia. So yeah, I think we're just starting to get it and more today than previous days.
Yeah. Um, that's is when you look at the maps and see how vastly the fires have spread. It's pretty scary.
It is, yeah, and it obviously seems to be getting worse and worse here on the West Coast. Um, yeah, we actually lived in Bellingham, gosh, for close to 30 years, and then recently moved to the Washington coast back in March or April. Um, Basically, just we moved here. It's a little cheaper to live. The cost of living in Bellingham was kind of going through the roof, and we're looking to change gears. The regular job I did for 25 years and needed a change. So we kind of found a place that was a little cheaper to live, and it's actually pretty nice. We live on the coast, so I guess for a surf rock label, it's not a bad thing to live where the surf is. Although we have two older sons, one's 20 and one's 18, and they both surf. The older quite a bit more than the younger one, and he goes all over the West Coast surfing. And when he heard we were moving here, he's like, "Why there? The surf sucks." And it actually does. There's not too much surfing where we live, like within walking distance, but within an hour's drive, there's some pretty good spots.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about the label, the bands, people that you work with before we leave?
Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting where things go. I know it's really tough for bands, especially bands that do music for a living. There's not too many in the surf community that actually play surf rock for that's their job. There's probably Los Straitjackets and gosh, I can't think of another surf band that actually does it for a living. But I'm in pretty good contact with Deke Dickerson, and he does that. He plays music for a living, and so it's tough for him not to be on the road, 250 days out of the year playing shows and earning money. Martin of the Razor Blades over in Germany, he's in the same situation. He does music for a living, but he's been able to make ends meet with private lessons, guitar lessons, and he wrote his surf guitar book recently, which is selling really well. So, people are doing what they can, but they can't play shows. And so, you know, that actually could be part of the reason why I don't really have anything in the pipeline right now is it's tough for bands to record. I know a few that are Black Ball Bandits. Black Ball Bandits. They're working on a new album that I'll be helping out with, releasing that on Double Crown. So, and they've been able to figure out some way to record while staying safe. But yeah, it's hard to record. It's hard to play shows. It's hard to write songs without your bandmates. So, we'll see what happens here. I mean, hopefully, it seems like things might be getting a little bit better, but at the same time, they say that there might be a second wave in the fall. So, we'll see how it goes. But without the ability to record music, it's kind of hard to release anything. I may take a look at, some releases have gone out of print. Like I mentioned, the Print Penetrators Locked and Loaded CD. Talked a little bit to the band about maybe doing a vinyl release. It'd be really cool to do a really deluxe package of that album, in colored vinyl, maybe a full gatefold sleeve. The problem there is Rick, their guitarist, did all their artwork and he's passed away. So it'd be a matter of finding somebody that the surviving members of the band would want to work with to kind of do the layout work and make that a really nice package. So there could be some reissue projects. I'm always on the lookout for bands that release stuff just on vinyl that might want to do a CD compilation. The German Astronauts were an example of that, and I've done that before with the Eight Men and the Untamed Youth. So maybe look at projects like that.
Great. Well, Well, I want to thank you very much, Sean, and
Sure.
for your graciousness and your time. I know it's a very busy time. The kids going back to school and everything, and the jobs, and I also work full time. So I appreciate you dedicating a little part of your day to talk to us and get the message out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you very much.
Okay, you have a good day.
All right. Thanks. You too. Take care.